It begins with the reception given by Capitan Tiago, Santiago de los Santos, at his house in Calle Anloague, now Juan Luna Street, on the last day of October. Capitan Tiago, small, tan complexion, has a round face and fairly fat. His chubbiness, according to his admirer, was a gift from heaven, and according to his enemies, it is because of the blood that runs through his veins that is from the poor people. He looks younger than his actual age. He has a holy face same as of those girls in the convent. Capitan Tiago is said to be one of the richest in Binondo. He is also one of the famous landowner in Pampanga area in Laguna de Bay, and mostly in the town of San Diego, where he resides and where his precious memories happens. This reception was given in honor of Crisostomo Ibarra, a young and rich Filipino who had just returned after 7 years of study in Europe. Ibarra was the only son of Don Rafael Ibarra, friend of Capitan Tiago, and a fiancée of beautiful Maria Clara, supposed daughter of Capitan Tiago. All the guests stayed in the large hall of Capitan Tiago's house. There you will see that men are separated from women just like the usual view on Catholic churches. This young lady seldom talks and you cannot almost hear even a single word. The person who receives the guest are the cousin of Capitan Tiago, Tia Isabel. This old woman has a lame face and speaks fluently in Spanish, greets and offers with full respect a pack of cigars and tobacco, while the Filipino ladies get her hands and bless like the friars. The loudest commotion comes from the circle of men that surrounds a table of wine and rums. This circle was composed of 2 friars, 2 Franciscan guides, and a general of Guardia Civil. Among the guests during the reception were the said 2 friars, Padre Damaso, a fat Franciscan friar who had been parish priest for 20 years of San Diego, Ibarra's native town, Padre Sibila, a young Dominican parish priest of Binondo, Senor Guevara, an elderly and kind lieutenant of the Guardia Civil, Don Tiburcio de Espadanya, a bogus Spanish physician, lame and handpicked husband of Doña Victorina, and several ladies. He introduced himself to the ladies present in the said dinner, but refused to introduce themselves to him. Then he went to a group of young men in a manner that he observed during his time in Europe. He produced a favorable impression among the guests, except Padre Damaso, who was rude to him. During the dinner, the conversation centered on Ibarra's studies and travels abroad. Padre Damaso was in bad mood because he got a bony neck and a hard wing of the chicken tinola. He tried to discredit Ibarra's remarks. After the dinner, Ibarra left Capitan Tiago's house to return to his hotel. On the way, the kind Lieutenant Guevara told him the sad story of his father's death in San Diego. Don Rafael, his father, was a rich and brave man. He defended a helpless boy from the brutality of an illiterate Spanish tax collector, pushing the latter and accidentally killing him. Don Rafael was thrown in prison, where he died unhappily. On hearing about his father's sad story, Ibarra thanked the kind Spanish lieutenant and vowed to find out the truth about his father's death. The following morning, he visited Maria Clara, his childhood sweetheart and the supposed daughter of Capitan Tiago. Her mother, Pia Alba, died after giving birth to her. Capitan Tiago and Pia Alba finds difficulty in having a child. Because of having no child in their 6-year relationship, Pia Alba prays to different saints and patrons. But all of this was a failure. They were advised by Padre Damaso to dance and praise to the patron on Obando. Maria Clara grows in the guidance of his tia Isabel. During that time, Capitan Tiago are reading papers and files about their town San Diego. Upon knowing Ibarra's arrival, Maria Clara became very tense and excited. She went inside her room and kissed all the saints and patrons on the altar. From the inside, she is trying to hear everything his father and Ibarra are talking through the hole in the doorknob. Ibarra requests to talk to Maria Clara as it was his real intention on visiting in Capitan Tiago's house. Tia Isabel pulled Maria Clara outside her room. And then they went to the azotea, where they start to talk and reminisce on their past. Maria Clara teasingly said that he had forgotten her because the girls in Germany were beautiful. Ibarra replied that he had never forgotten her. After the romantic reunion with Maria Clara, Ibarra went to San Diego to visit his father's grave. It was All Saints' Day. At the cemetery, the gravedigger told Ibarra that the corpse of Don Rafael was removed by order of the parish priest to be buried in the Chinese cemetery. But the corpse was heavy and it was a dark rainy night, so that the gravedigger simply threw the corpse into the lake. Ibarra was angered by the gravedigger's story. He left the cemetery. On the way, he met Padre Salvi, Franciscan parish priest of San Diego. In a flash, Ibarra pounced on the priest, demanding redress for desecrating his father's mortal remains. Padre Salvi told him that he had nothing to do with it, for he was not the parish priest at that time of Don Rafael's death. It was Padre Damaso, his predecessor, who was responsible for it. Convinced of Padre Salvi's innocence, Ibarra went away. In his town, Ibarra met several interesting people, such as the wise old man, Tasio the philosopher, whose ideas were too advanced for his times, so that the people, who could not understand him, called him Tasio the lunatic, the progressive school teacher, who complained to Ibarra that the children were losing interest in their studies because of the lack of a proper schoolhouse and the discouraging attitude of the parish friar towards both the teaching of Spanish and of the use of modern methods of pedagogy. A most tragic story in the novel is the tale of Sisa, who was formerly a rich girl but became poor because she married a gambler and a wastrel at that. One night, she had prepared a dinner for her two sons, the two sacristans, Basilio and Crispin. She set on table 3 fried ayungin with fresh tomatoes, which is the favorite food of Crispin, and a leg of a turkey from Pilosopo Tasio, that is Basilio. While waiting for her sons to come home, Pedro, her husband, came home unexpectedly and ate what was prepared for the two sacristans. That night, only Basilio was able to come home. Crispin, The younger of the two brothers was accused by the brutal sacristan mayor of stealing the money of the priest, and Basilio was accused of ringing the bell of the church wrong from what he was intended to. The younger Crispin was tortured in the convent and died. Basilio, with his brother's dying cries ringing in his ears, escaped. On his way home, past 10 p.m. at night, he passed by a two Guardia Civil, whom gave him a shot from his rifle. Basilio got home wounded and almost dying. On the next morning, Guardia Civils went to their home looking for Basilio. Guardia Civils, unable to find Basilio, took with them Sisa. After such happening, eventually because of her poor body and mind, Sisa was not able to control her great sorrow of losing her two sons. She tried to look for them everywhere until she became extinct. Kapitan Tiago, Maria Clara, and Aunt Isabel, Kapitan Tiago's cousin who took care of Maria Clara after her mother's death, arrived in San Diego. Ibarra and his friends gave a picnic at the lake. Among those present in this picnic were Maria Clara and her 4 girlfriends. The Mary Sinyang, the grave Victoria, the beautiful Iday, and the thoughtful Nene. Aunt Isabel, chaperone of Maria Clara, Kapitana Tika, mother of Sinyang, Andeng, foster sister of Maria Clara, Albino, the ex-theological student who was in love with Sinyang, and Ibarra and his friends. One of the boatmen was a strong and silent peasant youth named Elias. An incident of the picnic was the saving of Elias' life by Ibarra. Elias bravely grappled with a crocodile which was caught in the fish coral. But the crocodile struggled furiously so that Elias could not subdue it. Ibarra jumped into the water and killed the crocodile, thereby saving Elias. Another incident, which preceded the above-mentioned near-tragic crocodile incident, was the rendering of a beautiful song by Maria Clara, who had a sweet voice. Upon the insistent request of her friends, she played the harp and sang.
Sweet are the hours in one's native land, where all is dear, the sunbeams bless, life-giving breezes sweet the strand, and that is softened by love's caress. One kisses lay on mother's lips, on her fond, tender breast awakening, when round her neck this soft arm sleeps, and bright eyes smile her love partaking. Sweet is there for one's native land, where all is dear, the sunbeams bless. There is a breeze that sweeps the strand, without a mother or more love's caress.
After Maria Clara's song and the crocodile incident, they went ashore. They made merry in the cool, wooded meadow. Padre Salvi, Capitan Basilio, the former Gobernadorcillo and Sinyang's father, the alferez, lieutenant of the Guardia Civil, and the town officials were present. The luncheon was served and everybody enjoyed eating. The meal over, Ibarra and Capitan Basilio played chess, while Maria Clara and her friends played the Wheel of Chance, a game based on the fortune-telling book. As the girls were enjoying their fortune-telling game, Padre Salvi came and tore to pieces the book, saying that it was a sin to play such a game. Shortly thereafter, a sergeant and 4 soldiers of the Guardia Civil suddenly arrived, looking for Elias, who was hunted for assaulting Padre Damaso and throwing the alferez into a mud hole. Fortunately, Elias had disappeared, and the Guardia Civil went away empty-handed. During the picnic also, Ibarra received a telegram from the Spanish authority notifying him of the approval of his donation of a schoolhouse for the children of San Diego. In the morning of the fiesta, there was a high mass in the church, officiated by Padre Salvi. Padre Damaso gave the long sermon, in which he expatiated on the evils of the times that were caused by certain men, who, having tasted some education, spread pernicious ideas among the people. At the sumptuous dinner that night under a decorated kiosk, a sad incident occurred. The arrogant Padre Damaso, speaking in the presence of many guests, insulted the memory of Ibarra's father. Ibarra jumped from his seat, knocked down the fat friar with his fist, and then seized a sharp knife. He would have killed the friar, were it not for the timely intervention of Maria Clara. Ibarra's attack on Padre Damaso produced 2 results. First, his engagement to Maria Clara was broken, and second, he was excommunicated. Fortunately, the liberal-minded Governor-General visited the town and befriended Ibarra. He told the young man not to worry. He persuaded Capitan Tiago to accept Ibarra as son-in-law and promised to see the Archbishop of Manila to lift the ban of excommunication. The fiesta over, Maria Clara became ill. She was treated by the quack Spanish physician, Tiburcio de Espadaña, whose wife, a vain and vulgar native woman, was a frequent visitor in Capitan Tiago's house. Don Tiburcio de Espadaña, a 35-year-old pitiful man, looks older than his spouse, who is 45 in real age. He was lame and a henpecked husband of Doña Victorina. This woman had hallucinations of being a superior Castilian, and although a native herself, she looked down on her own people as inferior beings. She added another de to her husband's surname in order to be more Spanish. Thus, she wanted to be called Doctora Doña Victorina de los Reyes de Espadaña. She introduced to Capitan Tiago a young Spaniard, Don Alfonso Linares de Espadaña, cousin of Don Tiburcio de Espadaña, and godson of Padre Damaso's brother-in-law. Linares was a penniless and jobless fortune hunter who came to the Philippines in search of a rich Filipino heiress. Both Doña Victorina and Padre Damaso sponsored his wooing of Maria Clara, but the latter did not respond because she loved Ibarra. A touch of comedy in the novel was the fight between two ludicrous señoras, Doña Consolacion, the vulgar mistress of the Spanish alferez, self-proclaimed beautiful, attractive. Her wasps are the same as of a queen. and dressed more beautiful and elegant than Maria Clara. And Doña Victorina, the flamboyantly dressed wife of a henpecked Spanish quack doctor. Both insulted each other in Gatter language, and not satisfied with their verbal warfare, they squared off to come to blows. The timely arrival of Padre Salvi stopped the fight, much to the regret of the curious onlookers. Elias, learning of Ibarra's arrest, burned all the papers that might incriminate his friend and set Ibarra's house on fire. Then he went to prison and helped Ibarra escape. He and Ibarra jumped into a banca loaded with zacate or grass. Ibarra stopped at the house of Capitan Tiago to say goodbye to Maria Clara. In the tearful last scene between the two lovers, Ibarra forgave Maria Clara for giving up his letters to her to the Spanish authorities who utilized them as evidence against him. On her part, Maria Clara revealed that those letters were exchanged with a letter from her late mother, Tia Alba, which Padre Salvi gave her. From this letter, she learned that her real father was Padre Damaso. After bidding Maria Clara farewell, Ibarra returned to the banca. He and Elias paddled up the Pasig River toward Laguna de Bay. A police boat, with a Guardia Civil on board, pursued them as their banca reached the lake. Elias told Ibarra to hide under the zacate. As the police boat was overtaking the banca, Elias jumped into the water and swam swiftly toward the shore. In this way, he diverted the attention of the soldiers on his person, thereby giving Ibarra a chance to escape. The soldiers fired at the swimming Elias, who was hit and sunk. The water turned red because of his blood. The soldiers, thinking that they had killed the fleeing Ibarra, returned to Manila. Thus, Ibarra was able to escape. Elias, seriously wounded, reached the shore and staggered into the forest. He met a boy, Basilio, who was weeping over his mother's dead body. He told Basilio to make a pyre on which their bodies, his and Sisa's, were to be burned to ashes. It was Christmas Eve, and the moon gleamed softly in the sky. Basilio prepared the funeral pyre. As life's breath slowly left his body, Elias looked toward the east and murmured, "I die without seeing the dawn brighten over my native land. You who have it to see, welcome it, and forget not those who have fallen during the night."
Goodbye, Salome. The sun is setting, and it won't appear good for the people to know that night overtook me here. But you've been crying. Don't deny it with your smile. You've been crying.
It is not right for me to live alone. I'll go to live with my relatives in Mindoro. Soon, I'll be able to pay the debt my mother left me when she died. To give up this house, in which one was born and had grown up, is something more than giving up one's being. A typhoon will come, a freshet, and everything will go to the lake.
Have you heard anyone speak ill of you? Have I sometimes worried you? Not that either. Then you are tired of my friendship and want to drive me away?
No, don't talk like that. I am not tired of your friendship. God knows that I am satisfied with my lot. I only desire health and that I may work. I don't envy the rich, the wealthy, but...
But what?
Nothing. I don't envy them as long as I have your friendship.
Salome, you know my cruel past and that my misfortune is not of my own making. If not for the fatality that at times keeps me thinking with bitterness, If it were not that I don't want my children to suffer with Salome, you Salome, you know that my cruel past and that my misfortune is not of my own making. If not for the fatality that at times keeps me thinking with bitterness, if it were not that I don't want my children to suffer what my sister and I suffered, you would have been my wife in the eyes of God. But for the sake of this very love, for the sake of this future family, I have sworn to end myself with the misfortune that we have been inheriting from father to son. And it is better that it should be so, for neither you nor I would wish to hear our children lament our love, which would only bequeath them misery. You do well to go to the house of your relatives. Forget me. Forget a love so mad and futile. Perhaps you'll meet there one who is not like me.
Elias,
You have misunderstood me. In my words, there is no complaint against you. Take my advice. Go home to your relatives. Here you have no one but me. And the day when I fall into the hands of my pursuers, you will be left alone for the rest of your life. Improve your youth and beauty to get a good husband, such as you deserve, for you don't know what it is to live among men.
I was thinking that you might go with me.
Alas, impossible, and more so than ever. I haven't yet found what I came here to seek. It's impossible. Today, I forfeited my liberty.
Well then, at least when I'm gone, live here. Stay in this house. It will make you remember me, and I will not think in this distant land that the hurricane had carried my hut to the lake. When my thoughts turn to these shores, the memory of you and of my house will appear to me together. Sleep where I have slept and dreamed. It will be as though I were beside you.
Oh, woman, you'll make me forget.
Goodbye, Salome. The sun is setting. It won't appear good for the people to know the night overtook me here. But you've been crying. Dawn and night with your smile. You've been crying.